Good evening, everyone. We're going to go ahead and call the Board of Supervisors meeting. Yes, can you hear me? Okay. We're going to call it to order. Let the record reflect that today is August 18th. The time is 7 p.m. And we're going to move to the approval of the agenda.
I make the motion to approve the agenda.
All right, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. At this time, we're going to be led by the, Mr. Martin and the invocation of pledge allegiance.
Let us pray. Our Father and our God, Lord, we just come before you as your humble servants. Lord, we just pray your blessings on each citizen of Amherst County. Father, we pray for each employee of the county, whether they be in the office or out in the field, providing essential services such as EMS or fire or law enforcement. We pray your protective hand around them. And Father, I just pray that you will bless us this evening, give this board wisdom as we just make decisions for the betterment of the county. Father, we thank you for your son, and it's in his name we ask and pray. Amen.
Attention, salute, pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
So at this time, we have citizen comments, we have one, Michael Alami, is that how you say your last name? So if you'll just state your name and address.
My name is Michael Allen, I reside on South Amherst Highway. Good evening to the community and county members, and thank you for your time and service to our county. I'm here to speak about public hearing item B, proposed amendment of subsection 707, ordinance 2020. I understand that this is also related to the approval.
Michael, I'm gonna ask you, we're gonna have the public hearing on B. If you will wait, and we'll invite you back up to speak during that part. Is that fine? Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, at this time, we're gonna, well, is there any other citizens here wishing to speak? Okay. We're gonna move on to the town hall meeting. So what will happen is Mr. Rogers will come up and do a presentation for us. Then we will allow the board to ask any questions, make any comments that they would like. And then we're gonna have an open dialogue where citizens, people online can ask any questions, present any comments. And it's gonna be an open dialogue for anybody to ask.
Okay, good evening, members of the board and members of the public. If you would, wait till I get to the end, and then I'll respond to questions, and the board can respond to questions if you have any. So I'm going to go through our proposals. As you may recall, we started this endeavor over a year ago. In an effort to make business-friendly changes to our ordinances and our processes and our tax code. And so we got through all of that, and last summer we were about ready to start on with the business tax changes. We call them business equity changes. I'll explain that in a second. To implement, and then the board decided to delay that for another year, and so here we are back, still with those changes, those proposals that we had originally. So hopefully everybody has seen these before. We're all quite comfortable with them at this point in time. They have been run by the Commissioner of Revenue. She actually initiated this process. You'll see in the board package the letter from her, an explanation of some statistics. And so we have gone forward with these changes. So what I would like to do is, well, and meanwhile, after we started that, the General Assembly met and allowed us, counties, to increase the meals tax rate that is allowed to match what cities do. And we are, counties were also allowed to begin instituting a cigarette tax, which cities can do. And so, so that has also been added to these proposals as an additional source of revenue. The goal for our business tax changes has not been to increase revenue because the board specifically told us to maintain tax parity. We were to be revenue neutral. Our intention, our goal is to raise the same amount of revenue after these tax changes as we had been raising before the changes were made. So with that, I'm first going to go through the business tax changes, and I'll go through our taxes one type at a time. And then after that, I'll address the cigarette tax and the meals tax. So, let's see. The first one that we have is merchant's capital tax. And of course, merchant's capital is the tax that really got this all going, because there were businesses in the county. The way the code is set up, you identify which businesses pay business license tax and which ones pay merchant's capital tax and the other types of taxes. And those that pay merchant's capital tax, the tax is based upon the inventory that's available, that the business has in stock on 1 January of each year. So it was a common occurrence that people would see car dealerships, for instance, move all their cars out of the county so they weren't in the county on the 1st of January so that they could not be taxed. That seemed a bit unfair. We looked at what the other counties were doing. Campbell County has no merchant's capital. Bedford County has none. Rockbridge County has none. Appomattox has a small one, and we have one. So our recommendation to the Board of Supervisors was that we completely repeal the tax and eliminate it. There are presently 211 businesses in the county that pay this tax, and they will no longer have to pay that tax if the board adopts the proposal. The next one is machinery and tools. Now, this is also based upon the inventory and on the assessed value of the machinery and tools. You can see there the rates that the different counties charge. We're sort of in the middle, maybe on the low end of the middle, and so therefore we want to leave it as is. And so when it says assessed value, 25% of the cost, so whatever the cost to purchase the machinery or tools, we take 25% of that amount, and that's what's paid $2 per $100 of that value. Okay. Business license tax. Okay, this is where our big changes are. Right now, what you see is what exists in our region. A business license tax is based upon, everyone has to file for a license that operates in the county. If they operate in the town, they get a business license from the town. And each year, they pay a tax based upon their gross receipts that they earned in the prior year, okay? So it's a tax based on prior year reported sales. You can see on the slide that Appomattox and Bedford do not have a business license tax. And the tax is broken out by the type of business. We only presently tax contractors and personal service and professional services. So these three on the far right, okay? Rockbridge and Campbell also tax wholesale and retail businesses. And so this is what we propose to do also, to tax, because we've wiped out the merchant's capital tax, we want to replace it with a tax on retail businesses and wholesale businesses. And these tax rates that you see here that are in bold are basically the same tax rates that Campbell County has, with some exceptions. What we did, we have a number of small businesses, we call them the mom and pop shops, who have high gross receipts because they sell a lot of gasoline, but there's not a big profit margin on gasoline, and so it looks like they're having big sales on which they would pay a lot of taxes. And so the Commissioner of the Revenue wanted to be certain that we did not burden those smaller business owners. So while our tax rate at 20 cents per 100 of gross receipts excludes gas, diesel, kerosene, and it taxes that at only 8 cents. Campbell County taxes it all at 20 cents. So in that sense, in that regard, we are more business friendly with regard to those tax rates. And just so that you know, there are 125 businesses that this will affect. this will reach to. Okay. The next tax that we have is a business equipment tax. This is also assessed once a year on January 1, based on assessed value. We made some changes here. Our old tax, as you can see in the next to the last line, is $3.45 per hundred. No, $3.45 on the assessed value, which is 30% of the purchase price. Okay, so they taxed 30% of that. There's $3.45. It is per hundred, isn't it? Yeah, and we left that off on this slide. Okay, so that's the current rate. But the problem that we had, that we wanted to respond to with regard to businesses, was that we assess that tax every year at 30% of the cost, regardless of how old the piece of equipment is. Even after they've depreciated off their books, we're still taxing it at 30% of its cost. So what we decided to do to make that a bit more business friendly is, first of all, we reduced the amount of the tax by a nickel, and then we added more depreciation. So we're going to tax at 40% of cost, but only for the first 4 years, and thereafter we'll only tax at 25%. Now, there's a lot of different ways that could have been sliced and diced, in the number of years and the tax rates, but that combination is what allows us to remain revenue neutral. That's where we can make the easiest adjustment to match the revenue that we're currently receiving. And of course, any of this can be changed. The meals tax. So you can see there what the surrounding counties charge for on gross receipts of meals. And we also charge 4% on gross receipts. The legislature allows us to increase that. I've spoken with the administrators of these other counties. They intend to recommend increases, but they're not at this stage the way we are, because we started this so much earlier. We're kind of first out of the gate. And they do not yet have a sense for whether their supervisors will also agree to that. One of the nice things about meals tax is that it is collected from the people who enjoy the benefit of the product. And so, and in many cases, when we have people from outside the county who are coming through the county to eat, we get to collect taxes from people who don't live here. So that's an added advantage. We're proposing that we increase that rate to 6% of the cost of meal. And that 2% increase will increase our revenues on a recurring basis by $500,000 per year. Lodging tax. Lodging tax, you can see how we compare with the other counties. We're not proposing any change to our current lodging tax. It might be interesting to note that the way ours is set up, 3% of the taxes that we collect from hotels is dedicated to tourism. We have to spend that on tourism, and we do. That drops directly into the tourism budget. The next one is a new tax, a cigarette tax. It will take effect next July. So in July of 2021, and the law allows counties to impose a tax of up to 40 cents a pack. And just for basis of comparison, the city of Lynchburg charges 35 cents for a pack of cigarettes. Our recommendation is that we institute a tax of 27 cents a pack. We would receive 25 of that, and the retailer, for their services in collecting that tax, receives 2 cents a pack. With 50 retailers in the county selling cigarettes, we envision that this tax will raise revenue of approximately $1 million, possibly more. Okay, so how does this actually affect the county's income level? You can see each of the different types of taxes and what the changes are that we're implementing. So merchants capital will be ended. So we're losing $300,000 in revenue. We're making no changes in machinery and tools. The business license tax that we've established, we're estimating at $305,000. And then no change to business equipment. The meals tax would raise $500,000, and the cigarette tax $1 million. Staff's proposal for that funding, that it be used to fund our capital improvement plan. The county has long had no dedicated source of revenue going directly to the future, and we've struggled with this here in the last 2 years as we've watched our unobligated general fund balance decline because it does not have a recurring revenue source. It just operates on leftovers from the prior year. And so if we would dedicate this $1.5 million toward that, it just so happens that we, on average, spend about $1.5 million every year in our capital projects. So with that, Madam Chair, I have a statement from the Chamber of Commerce, and then maybe we can open up for questions. Sure. Okay. This is from Sabrina Kennan, who is the president of the Amherst County Chamber of Commerce. She submitted this statement and asked that it be read in the town hall meeting. It says, Amherst County Board of Supervisors. The Amherst County Chamber of Commerce is writing this on behalf of our members. We would like to inquire where the money from these taxes will be placed specifically in the budget. Would this money be best served going towards a more business-friendly internet situation in the county? The initial estimate of $1 million of the CARE Act funding was cut in half. Would this money be allotted to make up that shortfall? Is the additional CARES Act funding going to be used to level the playing field in the county? As part of the business-friendly initiative, it is imperative for our businesses to have access to adequate internet throughout the county. It has also become very apparent that our children need access to an equitable solution for this problem. Getting our children back into school then releases the burden on working parents and thus benefits many businesses in the area. This would also be an attraction for businesses who would like to do commerce in Amherst County. The internet continues to be a concern for many businesses as well as citizens. We, as the Chamber, would like to suggest a long-term solution be funded through outside means, such as these new taxes, to relieve the stress on other critical functions of the county. We would also like to address the meals tax increases. While we understand there is a need for more funding for county needs, with the unemployment rate being as it is now the best time to instate such a tax. The meals tax falls mostly on the consumer. Wouldn't a 2% higher tax than other localities hinder bringing in business from outside the county? We want to ensure others enjoy the businesses of Amherst. While the tax may be small to some, others may choose not to frequent our dining establishments due to the cost. We thank you for your time and consideration on these matters. Thank you all for your service. Kindest regards, Sabrina Kennan, President.
Would you like to address any of her questions?
Yes, so her question were, where will this money be used in the budget? The answer is the Board of Supervisors have not yet decided where it will be used. Staff is recommending that it be applied toward the future fund, as I explained, to help fund capital projects into the future. Toward business-friendly internet situation, well, we actually are going to address that tonight later on with the CARES Act funding. So the board may very well apply more CARES Act funding to internet as well as other projects. That is still fluid. It can still be changed. Nothing is set in stone yet. So can I invite questions from anybody? Board members, any questions or comments? Members of the public, any questions or comments? Anybody want to make a comment?
I'll make a comment. I mean, thanks for putting this all together. It's a whole lot to chew on and to understand. I know a lot of people have a lot of questions, and trying to do our best to get the information out there. So if people do have questions, they can reach us, whether through this form or email, phone calls. A lot of this is hard for me to understand it totally because it's all tax implications. But what we would like to see is if we switch to a different approach that is neutral, like you said, that it doesn't affect anyone more than another group of people. And I think we've tried to do that here. You probably said it better than I could in your opening statement. However, there are some things in here that I do take caution to. For instance, the meals tax, I can completely understand where people are coming from, especially restaurants have been pounded. I mean, right now with COVID and all that is going on, some restaurants may never come back. A lot of them are struggling. I know fast food places that have adapted are doing well, but it's a hard sell right now for me, a meals tax. However, we do need a additional stream to help replenish our unobligated reserve fund, and the cigarette tax would go a long way in doing that. Many other localities and places have that ability to tax, and you know, it's a bad habit. It causes a lot of ill health, and you know, if you put a tax on it, I don't know. I don't know if it diminishes the amount of people that smoke or not, but I mean, it certainly would be a good thing for public health to have less smokers.
I checked with the Commissioner of Revenue earlier today and asked her, one of the things, she took all this time, she surveyed businesses, and when she sent out her tax notices, she informed them of these changes and asked for their input. And she got responses from, she said, 2 to 3 dozen different businesses. And all but 2 were in favor. The 2 that were against, one was just against taxes in general, that there shouldn't be any taxes. And the other one did not make anything specific, but was opposed to these taxes without specifying. But all the others were in favor of these proposed changes.
So, Mr. Rogers, I have a question. So when you talk about cigarette tax, it's tied directly to cigarettes, not all tobacco products.
It is,
Well,
rolling tobacco is
what
included.
about smokeless tobacco?
I don't think that it is.
We could do it that way, but that wasn't the intention at
Okay.
first.
Yeah, I guess how does the law read is the question. You know, what
I don't think it's.
I can pull it up.
I
Yeah.
thought it specifically said cigarettes.
The state tax is set up such that it is it's based on per pack for cigarettes, but then for cigars, pipe tobacco, and smokeless, it's based upon, I want to say, ounces or pounds.
okay, so it is
So
taxed.
I will need to look how it would work at the local level, whether we have a choice of what.
There is some, just so you know. The cigarette tax is not completely cost-free. There is some administrative costs, and there's some that you have to buy the stamps and then ship them to the distributors. So if you get into the smaller things, I'm just telling that it's gonna add a lot to the administrative cost. I'm just giving you that heads up.
All right, okay. Well, I mean, you all have a plan of what you want to do and how much you
Well,
could bring in, so.
Yeah, I've done it before, so I just want to give you that heads up that there is you have to store these things and you have to sort them based on what you're taxing. So they can't really- There's an expense to getting those stamped.
I understand.
And if they're different, we'll have multiple ones.
So, Mr. Rogers, the General Assembly allows us to go up to 40 cents a pack. Did you run any calculations on what it would take to yield the 1.5 million just based on a cigarette tax? Would it be 12 cents more, or could you get there without doing meals tax?
No, but of course we did not run those. Fortunately for us, our financial officer is the ex-treasurer for mathematics and had the experience of their 13 businesses that sold cigarette taxes, and those 13 businesses raised $750,000 from just 13 businesses. We have 50, so we're estimating at least $1 million in terms of sales.
Yeah, I mean, you would be cautious too, to see what you would get. It wouldn't just be, well, we got this $1 million, we're gonna use it, we're gonna go ahead and spend it on capital funds immediately when you don't know what it's gonna be.
And we're not even gonna see it for more than a year. We're not gonna impose it for a year, and then we'll have to collect it at the end of the year. So we're not gonna see this for a couple of years. Now the way forward is, this is just a town hall. This is a chance to let the public complain at you and try to influence you and get their questions answered. Based upon what happens tonight, Mr. Lockaby will finalize the draft ordinances that would put these into place, and we would bring them to you as a first read at our next meeting, which is the first meeting in September, and then advertise for a public hearing on them at the second meeting in September, at which you would hopefully then adopt them as they were drafted. And then the cigarette tax takes effect the following July, but the other taxes would take effect on 1 January of 2024.
Would you be so kind to try and run a calculation like that on the cigarette tax to yield the same amount of revenue without doing a meals thing?
Yeah, well, we can. I mean, we're estimating the number of businesses that are selling. We don't have their actual cigarette sales revenue. It's all quite a guesstimate.
Well, I mean, but you guessed something to get to the 1 million. You guessed something to get to the 1.5.
Yes, yes, sir. We'll figure what the cigarette tax could be and reach 1.5. And we'll bring that back when we do our first read. So that if you want to make, because that's the time when you would make adjustments to the ordinance anyway.
That's right. Thank you.
I have a question regarding the timeline. When does this need to be in place? I know you just laid out the timeline you're talking about. Just say we needed some more time because businesses didn't even know about this. So there's people that don't really know what we're doing and they had more questions, or right at the last minute we're bombarded with people. Is there any way to extend this if we see something that a real surge of people wanting more information?
I think we could probably extend it another month. If you'll recall, last year, we delayed till after the election, and because we did that, we couldn't institute it by the 1st of January. So we have.
You got a little bit of flexibility,
We do.
just a little bit. I was just making sure in case, something really came out of it that we didn't know was foresaw.
Yeah, I think you gave us some of this information, maybe at the last meeting, but you also talked about how actually a lot of the restaurants were doing stronger than we anticipated, right?
As it turns out, we owe you a report on revenue at our next meeting, and Stacy's preparing that. But just to give you a preview, our tax revenues, our sales tax revenues are significantly higher than they were last year. And even our meals tax revenues are higher. So, at least in Amherst County, this pandemic is, we estimated the swoosh, a dip in revenue, and then it would climb back slowly. And there was a bit of a dip in meals tax, but everything else has gone up.
Just to play devil's advocate, you could make the case that a lot of this went up for the buying that went on. People going to the grocery store and hoarding things. Toilet paper is one example, or times you couldn't find meat at the store, people were preparing for a worse situation. So I'm sure there was that helped probably some of your
June's
sales.
is the highest. I mean, I think a lot of that went on in March and April, but June's was the highest sales tax we've had so far.
People getting antsy to stand
I
on
don't
maybe.
know, I just keep looking at the numbers and.
Yeah, that also includes the internet sales.
Yes.
Correct. But that we're seeing. And
Well, the plan was to bring all this data back to you in September, and then you all were going to re-look at everything that you had delayed in the capital improvement plan, the CIP, and the supplemental budget to see whether, okay, it's not as bad as we thought, maybe we can go forward with some of these projects. Anybody want to say anything?
Should we check online?
Oh, yes. Any comments or questions? Thank you.
No.
Nothing. Okay. All right. Well, we did a town hall this year.
Administrator Rogers, I'm sorry, this is my first board meeting, so I guess I did have a question, but it was in reference to talking about the internet later. Is there time for public comment then, or is that this time now?
Well, this is a town hall about the tax increases. When we talk about the CARES Act funding, that's not an open discussion. We'll watch the board discuss that. But there is a public comment period after that discussion.
Well, Mr. Rogers, are you still working?
I am. And I was
Okay,
gonna-
so in fairness to the officer, the chamber offered comments about using funding and dedicating it towards internet, and I believe your comments are going to be addressed towards internet service, right? Or isn't it kind of the same? Should
Sure.
he provide those comments so he could get back to work?
Basically, I've been in contact with, sorry, like I said, this is my first.
Can you tell us your name and address?
Caleb Martin, I live on 1511 Boxwood Farm Road. I'm here kind of in relation to a couple people in the same area on Boxwood Farm Road in regards to some of the internet news that has come out, and I've been following internet for 3 years since I've lived here in the county. My concern is if the county is, originally I thought the deal with SCS was a good stride towards bringing broadband to underserved areas. I can say I've had everything from SCS to Scientex internet to satellite. The reliability, Scientech has been overall good for the most part, but it still goes out probably once a week. SCS, like, barely get a signal where I live, and when the partnership actually happened, that's when neighbors around me lost their internet, was SCS. I know one of the comments in one of the News in Advance articles the other day was a proposal from, I guess, CVEC Firefly, as a subsidiary for a area called the New Glasgow and Clifford project, which was 340 homes at a cost of roughly $860,000, I think is what I added out to be for the miles underground for the cable. I know you're not taking a vote tonight, I know it's just a discussion on the CARES Act, but I would just ask the board that they take in mind, we partnered with SCS, and I know more people who have lost service through SCS. I know they're trying to do a good job, but the county needs a reliable internet hardline service. I have piles of research on my computer from internet for the last 3 years, and I know if you want to encourage people to move to a county, they have to have access to compete with neighboring jurisdictions, neighboring counties, cities, and like that. Lynchburg, you live anywhere in Lynchburg, you have hardline connection. It's a lot easier. There's more homes closer together. But if you watch the demographics of a county, I'm from central Pennsylvania, very much like this. The younger generation is moving out. They're moving to the cities. They're moving places where they have access to jobs. COVID shows us the main reason why we need a reliable internet service. I've not talked to anybody who has ever told me, no, I don't want a hardline connection. Satellite's not reliable. So I would just ask the board of supervisors in the county to look strongly at the proposals from Firefly and CVEC. I'd love to see if there was more competition, but I know Comcast has a monopoly on the south end of the county. They're the only hardwire provider in this county that I know for public access, from wrong. And DSL through Verizon, but they don't add new customers. We don't have anything in north end of the county. I mean, there is no hardline competitor. The prices Comcast charge would be half almost of what CVEC is charging their customers for a gigabit speed of internet. My wife works for the community service board as a mental health therapist. My mother-in-law is my neighbor, she's a teacher. I have 2 other teachers that live right up in front of me. They all had to go somewhere to find public access to internet during COVID. And I'm sorry, I foresee the schools opening back up as they do, and at some point or another, till they really go through things, the schools shutting back down to an extent. And students can't, in that part of the county, can't access the information they need as easily as other students can. I know the county has done everything they can, but it's very important that I think the county or the board of supervisors looks at allocating that money. I know SCS made a proposal that may cover more people. If you cover more people, how reliable is it? I mean, I could go 2 weeks at a time with SCS and not have any service, and it was 2 weeks, so I got a service call out there. So,
Thank you.
Thank you for coming.
So, Mr. Rogers, the chamber wrote about internet, Mr. Officer Barton's talked about it, no relation, by the way, but, we're brothers in service. What I'd like for our citizens to know is that there's a study going on, right? That we're looking at how to best provide internet to the entire county, all right? I don't think just dumping money at it right now is necessarily very wise until we know where it's best to spend the money. Fair. I mean, we could put millions and millions of dollars in it, but if we're not doing it the right way, it's just wasted money, right? So when is that study supposed to be done?
So a study is being done by Lit Communities. We anticipate that they'll be done by October of this fall. But their contract also places them in the position of a consultant for us. So we have applied for 3 Virginia Telecommunications Initiative grants that were just mentioned. So we're trying to get that money, and they assisted us and they presented a report to the board at the Broadband Authority Board's last meeting, recommending that we go forward with those. And we are right now soliciting, we put out, with their assistance, we drafted a request for proposals for anyone else who would like to make proposals for us to use our CARES Act money. Now that CARES Act money goes away goes away this year. We have to have purchased whatever it is services we're going to get by 30 December. And so that means, that's what the latter half of this meeting will be about, on what we do with that money. But yeah, we are using them to advise us so that we don't do something stupid. We don't waste money, but we also don't want to leave any money on the table, have it not spent. I mean, it truly is a gift from the federal government. And we will use them and their expertise to advise us so that we don't do something unwise.
Right, and the point I brought that up is because I think it's important that our citizens know that our administration, and I think I speak for the entire board, that improving internet service to the county is one of our top priorities, right? So we're definitely looking at it, but we want to make sure we do it in the right way and be responsible in the way that we do it, right?
Absolutely, yes, sir.
There's no other comments or questions for the business tax changes. We're going to move on to public hearing. We've got the Service Authority Articles of Incorporation. Mr. Hopkins, I think you've got the floor.
Good evening, everybody. Mr. Rogers asked me to give a quick introduction to where we are coming into the public hearing. Currently, and since I think 1955, all 5 of Amherst County supervisors have also served on the 5-man or 5-person Service Authority Board. It's been proposed to reorganize the structure of that board to include only 3 supervisors and 2 appointed citizens. That process actually started over 2 years ago, and it's been a long time. It's involved a great deal of effort and cooperation between county staff and the supervisors, the Service Authority Board, and Service Authority staff and the county attorney. And earlier this year, the Service Authority Board revised its board charter, and we're here to talk tonight about getting public hearing comments about the revised Articles of Incorporation for the Service Authority. The supervisors received 10 letters of interest from the public, interviewed 4 candidates,
and ended up selecting Wesley Woods and Turner Perot to serve on the board. Mr. Woods is a local businessman and ACSA customer, and Mr. Perot is also is a service authority customer, and they're both county citizens, and they both have experience serving on public boards. So where we are is public hearing tonight to get the comments on the revised articles of incorporation. And if everything goes well with that, then the board would adopt the revised articles tonight. The county attorney will submit them to the State Corporation Commission for approval. But as of tonight, it's my understanding that Mr. Woods and Mr. Perot would be selected to the board, appointed to the board. So it would be on the board as of tonight, and it would be on the dais at the next meeting on September 1st.
Thank you, Mr. Robinson. Board, any discussion?
Your agenda item summary says that there still needs to be clarification on the 1% of the county's real estate.
Yeah, I thought that I had
thought we
taken
did
that out.
that, and I believe the way the actual resolution is worded takes care of that.
It does. Remember we had that discussion about that last meeting, and I made the edit to the actual articles when you read through them, so it's clear that if you have a bond issue that takes you over the aggregate of 1%, you gotta have a public hearing.
Correct. Which is.
I meant to take that out of the
Okay.
memo. I don't know how it stayed in there. I even remember deleting it. I just must have forgotten to hit save after I did it.
That's just so long
So,
here.
yes, sir.
So I have one thing about compensation for board members. I think that we need to add that to another agenda or next month's agenda or something to talk about how much we're going to pay for the service authority board members.
Those two citizens.
Mhm. And now I'll open up for the public hearing. Is there anybody here wishing to speak in favor of the articles of incorporation? Anybody wishing to speak opposed? All right, we'll close the public hearing. Board, what's your pleasure?
Madam Chair, I move that the board adopt the Amherst County Service Authority's articles of incorporation as presented.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Thank you, Mr. Hopkins. Moving on to ordinance 2020-0003, Mr. Bryant.
Hey, good afternoon. Going to request, this ordinance 2020-0003 amends two sections of the zoning ordinance. The first section of the zoning ordinance amends it allows for the use of a single-family dwelling to take place in a business use. We received a request from Mr. Bill Coffey of the Rosemeyer Corporation. They intend to build a AA self-storage. Their business model requires or seeks to put their attendant, the person that manages that site, into the storage unit and live there. Our zoning ordinance did not allow for that. So this first code amendment allows for someone to essentially live in the storage unit in that building. So we call it a dual use structure that's limited to a single family dwelling use and a business use. The second part of this ordinance, so there's two parts. The second part is still signage. We also had a request from Walmart in doing their on-site directional signs. They requested, our ordinance allows for any sign that is 18 inches in width or 42 inches in height. If it's that size or less, it's an exempt sign. It's not something we would be hearing on. They apparently have a requirement that they need to be 7 feet in height. And when we talked to Walmart about that, they had actually apparently gone to court over that because they needed to be at least 7 feet in height for their on-site signage. This is primarily, as we understand it, for their grocery pickup, and they would like to incorporate that in Madison Heights. At this time, this amendment would allow an applicant to come before you as a special exception use. So right now, anything that's less than 18 inches in width or 42 inches in height is an exempt sign. They can move forward through our process. Anything that goes above that, we propose it as the special exception use. So it would come forward both the planning commission and the board of supervisors. Both requests tonight are set up to be special exception requests. So either way you cut it, they both go before the planning commission and board of supervisors. Planning commission recommended approval of this, and the recommended motion is that the board adopt this ordinance amendment as presented. Any questions for staff?
Or any questions for Mr. Brent? At this time, we will open the public hearing. Is there anybody here wishing to speak in favor of? Anybody wishing to speak opposed?
Sorry for the confusion on the sign machine.
Thank you for your patience.
So we'll pick up where I left off. I understand this is also related to the approval of the amendment to subsection 707 to remove special permitting requirements from certain allowable uses within the B2 district. I applaud the effort to promote a business-friendly environment of hopes of providing more career opportunities for our citizens while increasing our tax base. My background is in accounting, includes experience with the industrial software industry as well as with the private equity group. Specifically, my teams perform feasibility studies and due diligence across the U.S. leading to the development and acquisition in excess of 2.5 million square feet of storage land, in addition to other asset classes. I'd like to make the board aware of a few concerns with this proposed amendment from an out-of-state entity that I believe are counterproductive to the vision of the county. While understanding the intent of the February 2019 Planning Commission meeting, I'm not quite sure why self-storage was added and by right uses permitted within the B2 district to promote business friendliness. We must look at the overall impact on the immediate neighborhood, surrounding area, local community, and county in entirety. After much review of the initial application, we're struggling to see the benefit. I find this to provide bare minimum in terms of economic activity, especially when compared to other uses recently granted by right permission. Other than property tax that would be substantially higher if there were a business with a larger basis, this operation would generate no sales tax or other local taxes for any applicable personal property or business use taxes, while providing 1 to 2 jobs at best. This project will also provide little additional spending within the county as the parent company is headquartered outside of Virginia. Referencing a Fairfax, Virginia publication from Inside Nova dated July 13, 2020, regarding a proposed storage facility of 131,000 square feet, significantly larger footprint than the 82,000 proposed here. The applicant noted that, quote, only one employee is slated to work at the building during this peak period, end quote. Also on the Rosemont Corporation website, there is a posting for their location in Lynchburg, seeking a full-time management position in which they are offering $11 an hour. Typically speaking, the apartment proposed requiring county approval will be for the employee, thus more than likely driving down the hourly wage. In addition, this business will be the 5th storage facility within a 2.3-mile radius and the 7th within the county, the closest being adjacent to Sheets, only 0.3 miles away. While the appearance may differ, the concept will not differentiate from the existing competing businesses that offer outdoor, indoor, and parking space. Survey of Rosemont locations in Virginia found that all 3 are operated without a residence on the business parcel, and that's the Lynchburg, Farmville, and South Boston. After the February 2019 Planning Commission meeting recommendation, Rosemont purchased the land in question. Now an out-of-state corporation is going to provide little advantage to the county, is asking for our help to alter the retaining language to allow housing of their employee on site. With board approval, we will facilitate the process for this project to break ground. Something that the board may be unaware of is the many localities across the nation, including but not limited to Parma, Ohio, Rock Hill, South Carolina, Miami, Florida, Birmingham, Alabama, Coon Rapids, Minnesota, Milford, Connecticut, and Bainbridge Island, Washington State, have all recently declared a moratorium or a ban on self-storage applications to determine a resolution on avoiding the negative effects this type of operation may have on the local available resources, community, and development efforts. I understand the county needs to work alongside businesses. that seeks to promote positive outcomes. However, I am alarmed that we are amending the ordinance that has worked well and without objection in order for this project that provides little benefit to the community to move forward. Will we continue to alter existing code for every one-off instance to meet the developer's needs? I highly encourage the board to consider the value of amending this ordinance for any material benefit and what precedent this may set, and whether this fits alongside our vision for the future of our community. Again, I thank you for your time.
Thank you, sir. Anyone else wishing to speak opposed to? At this time, we will close the public hearing. Board?
Madam Chair, I think when this first came before us, I expressed my concern with the directional signs. And if this has to be lumped in together, I will vote no on both for that reason. I think requiring a special use permit just to increase the height or square footage of your signage is a poor way to write a zoning ordinance. There's no standards, there's no limitations. It puts the board in a very subjective situation when people come before us. So I just can't support it, and I don't think that's the way for us to do our ordinances. There's no standards at all. So I will not be supporting the signage.
Any other discussion?
I have a question for you. Mr. Mark, there's a lot of information there on us, but with your background in planning, I assume, I take what you say quite seriously. And so what you're saying here is you don't support the one part of it, but you support to allow for the dual use structure.
Sure.
Okay, that's just one clarification.
Madam Chair?
Yes.
They can bifurcate that. They don't need to vote on all of it at the same time. You can make a motion to bifurcate if you wish.
Mr. Martin, are you putting that in motion?
I will move the part about the residential structure for approval.
All in favor, say aye. Aye. Opposed? Nay? None? That motion carries. And we still have the signage.
I would make a motion to deny that.
Can, rather than deny that, can we just simply not take action and allow us to bring something back? Would that work?
You just need the up or down. I think we'll still need to go back to the first reading of the plan.
I mean, my point is this. If you don't think the on-site directional signage is large enough, then amend it to what you think it needs to be. But don't leave it open-ended, where they could come in and ask for a 24-foot directional sign on Sunday, which could very well come before us, right? And if we just approved a 12-foot or an 18-foot, it's very subjective. What are we basing that on? There needs to be standards in the sign ordinance, and what you're doing is not having it. So that was my concern a month ago, and it's my concern today. So set what the standards are for the community, and let's follow. So, since there wasn't a second, I'd make a motion to table this until staff could come back with a more proposed.
Okay, we vote on that? Okay. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Nay? Motion carries.
We'll bring that back, the first meeting in September. We'll attempt a first read. Attempt a first read with the ordinance. And I think what we'll do, Mr. Martin, is as we come up with that draft, we'll run that by you to see if it's got the level of specificity you're looking for.
I mean, I just think that there should be a standard. And if it's 7 feet tall, it's 7 feet tall.
Okay. All right. Thank you. That's helpful.
All right, item C, Mr. Bryan, is that you too?
Ma'am. Okay, this is a request by Jerry Yancey, who's here with us tonight. This is a special exception in the B2 General Commercial District. The purpose of the special exception is to allow a tire shop that will provide tire installation and service, including rotating and balancing tires, and retail sales of new and used tires. The Planning Commission did recommend approval with numerous conditions. I will not read through all of them because there's 9 of them that were recommended. The recommended motion is that the board move to approve the special exception request with the conditions recommended by the Planning Commission. Any questions for staff?
Or any questions?
Yeah, Mr. Bryant, during your course of reviewing these plans, do you or VDOT look at access management on the 29 corridor?
A lot of times we do. In this case, I spoke to Mr. Kessler this morning and talked to him generally about, and actually, in 2002, the Parsons Group provided a transportation plan that for many years we really worked to try to follow, which was to try to reduce the ingress-egress points on Route 29, specifically Route 29 business. In this case, Mr. Kessler, who's the VDOT land use engineer, he recommended, not required, that the entrance that's near Winesep Road on Route 29 business be closed. He believes that would be the most dangerous entrance of the two. Both are 2 commercial entrances. So there's 2 entrances that really go pretty much side by side with a small, approximately 30-foot island that's between the 2. So VDOT would take the stance that it would be a recommendation to consider closing that entrance near Winesep Road. I've spoken today to Mr. Yancey about that. The applicant made him aware of that, and he thinks he can work through that. VDOT would require a land use permit because some of that work would be private property, some of that work would be on state property. So they would require land use permits. VDOT could help oversee that work. But I spoke to Mr. Yancey about that, and VDOT said the permit cost would be approximately $100 if we would go that route. Okay. I'll reserve further comment until after we hear from Mr. Yancey.
Thank you. All right, at this time we will open the public hearing. Is there anybody wishing to speak in favor of? So state your name and address for the record.
My name is Jerry Yancey, 718 City Gate Road. I don't have no questions. Just, I'm working with the state to do what I'm supposed to do. If I do it, it ain't gonna be free. So I gotta go by their guidelines. That's why I haven't planted the bushes yet, because I don't wanna put the wrong ones. I spent $600 in gravel that I don't really like. So I'm waiting to do the whole thing all over in the back, even on mine side. Other than that, I don't have any questions.
Well, if you put my tires on, will it be free?
Yeah.
All right.
Gravel ain't making me no money,
Yeah, I understand.
but I don't want to put the wrong stuff in and then peel it back. I done it once, and
Yeah.
it made me mad. I wasted $300, thought I knew what I was doing, I didn't.
That's my life.
But, the signs on the issue I had, I already bought the signs. I don't want to hang them until I know where to put them at. I've got about a permit tomorrow. They're 4x8. There's 2 of them 4x8s.
Okay, thank you. Y'all have any questions for Mr. Yancey?
I don't have any questions. I don't want to put any more due burden on him than what we already have, if we can help it. The property looks much better than it did just a matter of months ago. Put a lot of time and effort into cleaning that place up, painting it. It's an improvement through the 29 corridor, so I mean, I appreciate that. I'm glad we're using a building that was, car wash, but it had been empty pretty much. Nothing had been done to it for years, and so it's good to see someone, you own the property now, is that right?
I'm actually closed on it this month. And I've got the surveys coming out because the entrance, supposedly I own the one entrance on down in front of the motel. I don't know that for sure, but the EPA test, they got another test that's in ID. So I'm waiting on that. So that's why the entrance on Marvin Bay actually will help me. But other than the signs and the entrance, I don't care about the entrance. Mr. Jeremy actually told me if I had any other things going on, I need to go ahead, let y'all know that I want to do it. I rolled back, I've sold everything I've had. I bought me a house, and that's what I want to do. And I'm both running dry.
Understood. All right, that's just my thoughts.
Thank you.
Madam Chair, I'd like to comment on what Mr. Q said. I mean, that facility has been a car care from service station to car wash as far back as I can remember. And I noticed in here where the planning commission is suggesting that he plant these trees and shrubs. I've noticed several area businesses throughout the county and along the 29 corridor that these expectations are being asked of these folks. But the problem I see when they're made to spend this kind of money to plant these trees and whatnot, once they're planted, they're not maintained. And they actually look worse than if the property owners were allowed to plant grass there where they could keep it mowed and keep it weeded and taken care of. And you need to take notice of that in some of these businesses where they've been made to do these landscape plans and plant this stuff, and then it's a burden for them to continue to maintain it, and it looks absolutely awful. So, you know, we need to keep that in mind as we ask these folks to encumber these expenses to do that. Then also they're encumbering expense to try to take care of it. A lot of them don't do it, and it looks absolutely awful. Where if it was grass, they could mow it and keep it clean, it would probably look much better.
Yeah, I respect your opinion. I think I've said on new, actually since I've been on the board, I have said, my opinion is that if we want to create an environment where we want to attract business and residents, we need to create an environment that people want to be in. And landscaping is a proven way of doing that. There's been studies that show areas that are well landscaped, well laid out, people want to come back to, spend more time, actually spend more money on services. So if we want to continue having Madison Heights look the same way that it does, with no trees, power lines everywhere, signs everywhere, entrances everywhere that creates accidents, we run, I mean, there's accidents all the time through 29 corridor, fine. But if we want to improve the appearance of our county, we need to start and we need to seize every opportunity to do that. So, yeah, I mean, if a business does not maintain its landscaping, they're probably not going to maintain their building either. It's, you know, why would you want to go to a business that lets their stuff fall in disrepair? And I don't think Mr. Yancey will do that. I'm perfectly fine with the use. I'm fine with the, you know, the conditions that have been recommended by the planning commission. I wished that VDOT and county staff would pay more attention to access management on that corridor. You know, perhaps you can come back and give a presentation on it, or ask Mr. Kessler to come give a presentation to this board on the importance of it. Because when you limit the number of entrances, you're limiting the number of conflict points with vehicle turning movements, which reduces accidents, but also improves capacity on 29, right? And if we don't start seizing these opportunities, we're not going to improve the county. We're just going to maintain status quo. So I'll support the special use permit the way it's written. I think staff needs to pay better attention to details like that moving forward.
Okay, we're still in the public hearing. Can we invite anybody else? Thank you. Anybody else wishing to speak in favor of? Anybody wishing to speak opposed to? All right, now we will close the public hearing. Board is back open for discussion. And motion.
I move the resolution is submitted.
Oh, no, I was just gonna say, there was another conversation about landscaping involved in this too. And I think you gotta find the median. I know Jeremy has worked from time to time with people to use, plants that are already there, that are already in the landscape, and count them as some of these landscapes. We've got beautiful natural trees. You know, I know what Mr. Ayers is talking about. You plant the trees and then, you know, you get a hot summer and they die, and the dead bush is sticking out there. And, so things like that, you see it all the time, but it probably lies somewhere in between. But I think what Jeremy is doing is when he gets a chance, he's using some of the natural landscape that's already there and allowing people as a way to reduce costs, because landscaping is outrageous expensive. I don't care where you go buy high quality bushes and you're looking at big time, a lot of money. I got firsthand knowledge of it. You go to Rainforest Nursery or one of these nurseries and you want to spend a pretty amount of money. But anyway, getting back to the public hearing.
Well, public hearing's closed, we have a motion on the floor. All in favor, say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries. Thank you, Mr. Yancey. All right, moving on to the consent agenda. Any discussion? Motion approved.
I move we approve the consent agenda.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? County Administrator's Report.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Just a couple of items. The first one is I'm making a change to our HR regulation. It doesn't take effect until the board is notified of it. It's a one-word change. And it requires us, when we approve people for time off, that we will approve the use of their comp time first before we use up their vacation time. The reason for this is there are limits on vacation time, that you can only carry so much vacation time forward into a future year, so you can lose vacation time. That rule doesn't exist for comp time. There are some people that have days and days and months and weeks and months of comp time that have been built up. So we need to build into our system that we're going to use that comp time up so that it doesn't accumulate beyond reasonable bounds. So I'm not sure I just need you all to adopt the change. I'm allowed to do that on my own, but we've written the rules so that they don't take effect until you're notified.
Mr. Rogers, just a question, some clarification. I heard what you said, but I don't know if I understood it. As of now, vacation does not roll over from year to year. Is that correct?
Well, there's a cap.
What's the cap?
Depends on how many years.
Well, the problem you get into is
245 hours.
you have
It
people.
depends on the coverage.
So do you have an instance of a case where someone has had so much comp time and vacation built up that they could basically take a year off or so from work and not work or do anything but receive?
Go ahead, but we have to pay for the comp time.
Yeah, I understand that. But you're trying to limit the amount of comp time.
We have a limit on the comp time as well. So if they get up over 240 hours, we have to pay it out then. So we've already done that once this year. So we're trying to minimize that, plus we book that as a liability every year.
So, is that one of a lot of businesses in the private sector, you can't roll over, you lose it if you don't use it. That's the way a lot of them operate.
And that's how it operates for our vacation time. But for comp time, once they hit the limit, we have to pay it out.
That's our money.
And that's.
This is all based on our own policy, right? You know, if this is our policy that you're trying to correct now.
Yes, sir.
If an employee quits, do they get paid out their compensation time and any unused vacation?
Yes.
If they are terminated, do they?
Yes.
They get paid out their comp time, but not necessarily their vacation.
Okay. You need a motion from us.
I do. That the board accept the recommended change to the HR regulation.
Madam Chair, I move that the board accept the recommended change to HR Regulation 5.10, compensation time off as presented.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Thank you. The next item is the project status report. I just would like to invite questions if anybody has any questions about any of the projects that are listed there. It's always a challenge to keep that thing current. Things can change quickly, especially with regard to broadband now. But if there are no questions, I would like to alert the board to just some news items that are current as of today. The retreat, the planning retreat that we had planned for this coming Monday on the 24th, we've needed to move that from Sweetbriar College to Winton Farm. So it would be up at the banquet hall at Winton Farm instead of at Sweetbriar.
Starts at 9?
Starts at 9, goes to 4, we'll feed you lunch. It'll be in the ballroom, so there's sufficient distance for people and the public can be present if they wish. So it's just really just a change of venue. The other item I want to bring to your attention is you see us all wearing masks now. This is because the Virginia Department of Occupational Safety and Health has mandated that we create infectious disease response plans. We have completed ours, and so we are now wearing masks. County employees are wearing masks in the common areas, the public areas, and whenever we're within 6 feet of anyone. So when we're in our offices, or when we have to speak, I suppose, we don't need to wear the mask, but we're all learning to accept these new conditions. So I just wanted to explain why all the masks all of a sudden. Our plan is in place, and so we're following it. With that, that's all I have, Madam Chair, unless anyone has any questions for me.
Any questions for you? County Attorney's report?
I have nothing to add, Madam Chair. Answer any questions you've got about what's going on. I'll try to keep you informed.
Thank you. Departmental reports.
Okay, just to introduce the topic before I turn it over to Stacy, we're gonna go over this chart that you all were handed, and is in the board package. And at this point in time, we have $5.5 million of CARES Act funding that for the county to spend, and that number is depicted in the lower right-hand corner of the chart. And the challenge for us is, of course, that much of this money has to be spent and the goods delivered or the services in place by the 30th of December. And so while we would have no trouble spending that money on a variety of needed projects, the challenge for us is getting that money spent by the 30th, because here we are in the middle of August. You'll see on this chart a list of projects and categories that we believe the CARES Act money can be applied to. Some of these we're still confirming because the entire financial community is still trying to translate the Treasury Department guidance and how it's to be applied in specific cases. But we believe that we have a strong argument for all of the topics that we have there. In the first column where it says before December 30th, 2020, well, actually all the numbers in those first two columns, the board has already approved. Well, okay, I'll stick with the first column. Okay, the first column. You all have approved those at a prior meeting and directed staff to move forward in those amounts for those particular expenditures. And you can see down at the bottom of that total 1.858 million is what that totals up to. You can also see in the second column the money that you understand to be the salary switch, the money that if we pay it towards salaries now, we'll be able to apply it without the December 30th restriction. So that money is available into the future for us. So if we set that money aside for the future and have it there, that means If we deduct that 2.2 million from the 5.5, that leaves us with roughly $3.3 million that we need to spend by December 30th, or we lose the opportunity to spend it altogether. So tonight, our objective here is to fill up that first column with enough projects to meet or slightly exceed that 3.3 million. Because of the dollar amount, 5.5 exceeds more than 1% of our O&M budget, we have to go to a public hearing before this is appropriated into the budget. And therefore, we can't begin spending that money on these new categories until you do that appropriation. So if we would tonight, Stacy's going to take you through each one of these projects, and a lot of these dollars are estimates. Some of them turn out to be a little low at this point in time, and some may be high. So that's why we want you to spend a little bit more in case we end up saving money on some of these and don't spend it all. So I'm hopeful that that makes sense before we go through each of these and give you recommendations on what they should be. Does anybody have any questions on what we're doing and why we need to do it? And why we need to get it done tonight?
I don't have any questions. I mean, I see the list, and I've seen some information. Maybe somebody else up here might have it better than I do, but we can use some of this money on public safety equipment, if I'm not correct. Is that correct? Do y'all understand that? We could use it on things such as ambulances,
Yes, sir. And if you look on
We've got it in the list.
If you look on the list, down about third from the bottom, it says public safety supplies and equipment. We've got $330,000.
Yeah, I see that.
So we anticipate being able to get an ambulance at least.
But there's a whole plethora of things that I saw that we can spend it on. Is that, I mean, that's what I saw you pull up the other day on the internet. I mean, it was a list of things we could certainly use this money for, but this is what we have. This is the list we have in front of them, unless you all have any suggestions.
Well, these are categories, so they would include a lot of other minor, smaller details within those.
Yeah, Mr. Q, I think you're right. I think it would be nice just to hear what they are, and then we can have those discussions about where.
All right, I mean to jump the gun.
No, I think it's good.
Can I clarify one thing? You've already done a public hearing on the first half of the 5.5, the public hearing's on 2.7 that we'll have to do. So in the list, in the left-hand column, the only thing that I've included in there that hasn't been appropriated yet is the town portion that we will need to give them once we do the public hearing and appropriation. Just so you understand, they got 190 in the first tranche. We have to give them another 190 in the second one. I've already sent Mr. Payne the certification for them to take under to council, so we should be getting that back, and they'll be expecting it once we adopt the appropriation. So the public safety shelter, we've already started ordering that. It's on its way, I believe. Mr. Prophet?
Yeah. It's on its way. It hasn't been shipped. It's being built and then it will be.
Okay, it's in the process. So that's in the process. They're working on the Monroe hot water. That'll be soon. The small business grants and the nonprofit grants, I'm gonna give you a rounded off number, and then I'm gonna ask Victoria Hansen to come up and talk to you about where we are and the possible need that we still have. So our small business grants, we have $21,000 left, and right now I have 8 applications sitting on my desk. The nonprofits have 35,000 left, and I have 3 applications sitting on my desk now. So in essence, we don't have enough funds for the businesses that we currently have sitting there, and I have probably barely enough for the nonprofits that I currently have on my desk. Victoria.
So essentially, these have been very, very popular with our businesses. We've had, a lot of folks come in the first week. We've had a review committee meet every single week on the batch that comes in that week. So we have actually awarded 28 different businesses with almost $280,000 worth of CARES Act grants. And those are businesses of all different stripes and colors across the county. It's not like it's all just restaurants or something like that. It's a real mix of the county. We have put out this information on our website, through social media, through the regular media, the broadcast stations. Then we even went to the extra step with help of the county administration to get in mailing the comparison chart that's between the CARES Act funding and then the CDBG, which is the back in business grant funding. So we were coming at businesses with two different grants that look somewhat similar but have different requirements. And so we sent that chart out with the list of requirements and what it could be used for to everybody who our Commissioner of the Revenue had a business license address for. So about 700 envelopes went out. And when that hit last week, in the middle of the week, we started getting calls on it. So we have made sure that there is really covered all the bases as far as letting our businesses know. But what we all have found is that there are those that are a little slower to be ready to come forth with finding depending on the size and the level of sophistication of their accounting. For some, it's harder for them to get their profit and loss or their sales reports, and then for some, it seems like there's a little bit of distrust with working with the government. What does this mean? And so there are those that need a little extra encouragement to come forward. And in some categories, we see more of that than others. So we have really tried, working very diligently with Stacy, a lot of time and effort to try to reach out and work with every single business. And so, everybody looks the same as far as what they need and what their books look like. And within the rules, we've tried to be as flexible as we possibly can. So we have a great grants review committee that's looked at that. However, the difference between the CARES Act funds is when we send out an email saying on behalf of the board of supervisors and the EDA, you've been awarded this amount, we can say, if we send that out on Monday, they can pick those checks up on Wednesday. So for a lot of these businesses that were calling us, how soon can we pick up our check? Because they are really in need. They can get that money right away, and it's more flexible. With the other back in business grant, that can be used all the way through June of next summer, but it's only reimbursable. So they have to pay 6 months of rent, perhaps, to get to the up to $10,000 under the rent and utilities category. And then there's another category for $5,000. But for some of these businesses that are kind of living month to month through the pandemic, that's a hardship for them. So the CARES Act funding is a really important first step for a lot of companies to be made whole and stable, and then work on the reimbursement going forward. So we were going to request that in the small business category, there'd be another $150,000 put into that. We think we can, we should be able to take care of the businesses that are kind of in the pipeline that we've talked about but haven't necessarily gotten their grant application in, and also allow us to go and help businesses that struggle a little bit more. Sometimes it's with English, understanding the application, sometimes we won't help with that, but really be able to reach out a little bit further to some of our businesses that need that extra help to get the grant application. So that would be another additional $150,000 that would take care of the 9 new applications that are sitting right now in the process, and then those others that are coming in. And then the CDBG is kind of a backup. The back in business is kind of backing up those businesses as they go forward once they get the CARES Act from us. And in the nonprofit, there are 3 new applications. There have been a total of 11 different nonprofits that have applied for, and 11 that have received funds. We're requesting an additional $50,000. And the one, I guess, big question that we would have for you all is, Sweetwater College had the potential of up to $100,000. The review committee went ahead and started with $50,000 because they felt that they wanted to make sure that they could get as much funding out to a lot of different nonprofits. But whether or not you would want Sweetwater College to come back in this next round to be able to potentially attain that 100,000 that they could qualify for, or if you wanted Sweetwater College to come to you directly with an ask for some of the CARES funding. So that would, if you were to say, yeah, let's go ahead and give Sweetwater College the opportunity to get the full 100,000 that they could potentially qualify for, then it would be 100,000 nonprofit.
Does that make sense?
So
They-
150.
They came and asked for 100, they qualified for 100, but the committee only gave them 50 because they didn't want to use up all the money, they wanted to save it for others. So if we give more money in another tranche, Sweetbriar does qualify for another 50.
That was the committee's doing, not ours. We said there was a certain amount of money, they decided to have to distribute.
Right.
Okay.
And so because there are even more applicants, they're asking for more money to cover more applicants, but if you give enough, you could also include Sweetbriar again.
I get that. So all told, there was 500,000 in CDBG, right?
There is, in the back of business, there is 500,000 that is available to our small businesses, 20 employees or less.
And then there was 300,000 that was allocated for small business grants that you spent roughly 280. And there was 200,000 in nonprofit grants, right?
Correct.
That you spent pretty much all with.
166,000. So there is about 35,000 left.
So all told, there's about, either through board action, helping get, passing the resolutions to get the CDBG grant, the CARES funding that we put out, we've already put out made $1 million available.
800,000 for business, 200,000 for nonprofit.
So $1 million. And what is some of the demonstrated need for the businesses that are asking for it?
So we're asking for them to be able to prove a 10% loss of, or impact of COVID-19. So that can be profit loss for the months of March, April, May, or it could be sales. Their sales losses compared to 2019 to 2020. And they have to demonstrate that. And we look at the revenue loss that came in from that. And if they hit all the other qualifications, then they can be up to a certain amount of award, 5,000 if they are not locally owned, 10,000 if they are locally owned, and they qualify for up to the 10,000. If they have more than 21 to 100 employees, they can get up to 25,000.
So how much of the CDBG money was?
The CDBG money, we have not spent any of it yet. We are ready to do that. It takes a little bit more explanation after a lot of them come in for the CARES to explain the difference.
So there's still funding available, it's just a little bit hard to get.
That's correct. And the other thing is it takes about 30 to 45 days once they get awarded the amount before they'll see that reimbursement check.
I mean, I understand that.
Yeah. So that's the primary difference.
I have a couple questions. I would like to see or provide the information of a list of who y'all have given the money to. I'd just like to see that, see where it's going, if you can. Also, what happens once a company or somebody receives that money, a small business, they come and pick up the check and then they can do as they want to with that money?
So when they fill out their
Is there any,
application,
do they got strings attached?
they
to that?
have notarized that they will use this funding as they said that they're going to. When we send out their grant awards, we say, congratulations, you've received this amount and you can use it as you said in your application for this purpose. And the primary reason why we're doing that is you can't double dip on this federal funding between CDBG back in business and the CARES grant. So when we send out the email, we say you can use it, this is an example for your March, April, May grants. And so if they come in under CDBG, it has to be then June, July, August. They can't use it for the same purpose. Now, there's no way for us to know their books and things. That's why they sign the affidavit, which we say in there. We work with Mike Lockerbie to put in there that it's a felony essentially to falsify and use this incorrectly. So, and that's pretty much the standard that's going around for almost every locality is to have them do the affidavit or certify that they are going to use it and that they've not doubled it.
So they could essentially, so let's just say, I mean, if they went out of business, they got the money and they spent the money and they went out of business, I mean, it is what it is, right?
That is a possibility always.
Okay.
We don't
I was
expect
just
it,
wondering.
but yes, there's not like, in some incentives, there's clawbacks where you can come back after it, but in this case, it's a grant, the money has left. They have proven their loss, and this is to help them stay strong. But, we haven't had anyone who's gone.
I understand.
Could that possibility exist?
Sure.
Yes.
Was there a deadline for the application for the originally applied?
So we said it was first come, first served, and we said, get it in as soon as you can, because we knew that the pot of money would eventually go, just like when we started the EDA small business grant. So we let them know that up front, and then we did have an end of October where we said essentially we're going to cut it at that point, and if we had additional money, we could extend it, but we kind of figured it would be gone before then. Now with the CDBG, again, the back business can go all the way through June. And we think that money will last longer because, again, it's a reimbursement. So they have to show us a paid receipt before they can actually qualify for that amount to be submitted for reimbursement. And then that money then comes down through CAMS, the centralized management service, versus appropriated, having to cut a check out of the budget for the appropriation for supervisors.
So did the review committee decline any?
Yes, there were those that did not meet eligibility, and so there were some that were declined, and we wished them extremely well. We were sorry we could not help them, but they did not meet the eligibility criteria. And the grant review committee has been very fair, and they worked hard to make sure that they would be equitable across the way. And we spent actually several meetings just working on beyond the eligibility, how that committee was going to make the awards. And we got to cohesion, I'm happy to say, we've got great businesses who are sitting on that grant review committee that we knew would not be coming in for a grant, so there'd be no conflict of interest. We had them sign confidentiality statements so that businesses could feel comfortable knowing that that information that they're sharing would not go beyond the committee. And we've had two members of the county employees, Stacy being one of them, and then EDA also. But we've really appreciated having the businesses give up their time and volunteer to sit on the grants review committee.
So you're asking for $150,000 for small business and $50,000 for nonprofit. Is that for applications you already have?
That's for some that are already currently sitting on Stacy's desk, ready to be inputted. We actually have a grants review committee coming up on Thursday for the next round. We know we've got some of this money left. We just don't know if there's going to be any beyond that. And that's the question.
But just to be clear, you have $500,000 of CDBG money
That's correct.
that you haven't spent any of. Just because it's a little bit harder to get to, more strings attached, you haven't spent any of it.
That's correct.
So you're coming asking for another 200,000 with pretty much no strings, no auditing capabilities for the county. Basically just we're throwing money out, right?
Yeah.
And it's not on this list up there, right, that you sent to us.
The money you already set aside is
No,
on
the additional money that you're.
No additional money is on that list.
No additional money.
Is currently, because you all are deciding where that additional money is.
So it wasn't even thought of until tonight, or?
Well, you got it there under D, right? That's where you're asking for additional 300 for these.
No.
No, that's your original 300 that you set aside.
Okay.
See, if you go down to the bottom of the page, and you see 1.8, that's how much you authorize. 3.3 is how much we need, what you need to reach. So we're giving you proposals here on where to add more money to reach 3.3.
Okay, I understand.
Yeah, it's just my opinion. You guys went out and did the work, and we had special meetings and did whatever to make the CDBG money available. Use it.
Well, we will, and the businesses will. We just know that there are businesses that it would be difficult for them to not get reimbursed for 6 months. They have to pay it out and then put it in for remittance and then wait the 30 to 45 days. Not possible, and it's kind of a backstop, but that is, one of the considerations. And, we've really spread the word on the CARES Act and the rest of it. So businesses, we have done everything we can to at least inform them and help them along the process.
So was any of the questions, I brought this up when we first did this, but were any of the criteria related to job layoffs? Did you ask that, if they laid anybody off?
We did, we asked that question in the application. For the most part, it did not come into any of this grant awarding discussions. It just wasn't, there weren't that many layoffs, and a lot of them had smaller, or they were able to keep their employees through the PPP. The PPP was a huge help for a lot of businesses.
So did you say the majority?
I would say the majority were able to keep their employees. If you talk about full-time, now some of, your restaurants are part-time, and even nail salons would lose some employees because they either they moved on to something else, they didn't want to come back because of safety concerns. But the job losses were actually fairly minimal among the majority of those who were asking for it. There were some with only 1 or 2 employees. So just depended on the type of business.
So let me just remind you, I think we did not get clear budget yet until last week on CDBG, so it wasn't something we could have been dipping into yet. We're just getting started on that.
The reality is it's called urgent need, but it's taken a really long time for DHCD, because they'll say, go ahead and submit, and they'll go, oh yeah, but not quite yet.
It's always a bear, I understand,
It
but it is
is.
available.
So we haven't gotten the final green light to say you can start uploading your remittances. So we are really, really close, but we've been gathering in these applications, and we'll be ready to start reviewing them, and then the remittances is something.
And I mean, I really appreciate the work that you do, and the grant money that's been put out there. I think it's absolutely needed. Yet, to Mr. Q's point, right, we've got people out there on the front lines, right, that are dealing with this every day, right? And I think all told, if the board accepts the 330 and the 80, that's what, 410,000, right? And, we're talking about putting $1 million to this for the people that are actually out there dealing with the pandemic. I just don't get that, right? I think we should be putting more into the public safety side than just kind of throwing out free money all the time. And I wouldn't say that if the CDBG money wasn't available. It is. There's $500,000 more that is available to assist small businesses. That's why we went out and did that. Use it.
And we will. And I feel confident we're going to spend it all. It's just it hasn't been available.
And furthermore, I'm a little, surprised that we're just hearing about this additional request tonight and it wasn't on the list. Right? You sent us a list of suggestions, right?
We didn't have this until Friday, so I apologize.
Okay, but now we're talking about $200,000 more. So, go ahead.
Right, I mean, this is,
Do any of y'all?
that's what we're gonna present tonight, is the request that we've been accumulating over time. This is just a snapshot of where we are. And the point of this is we gotta spend, 1.2, we gotta add 1.2 million to this tonight. 1.4, thank you.
I have a question regarding the CDB, the grants. What is the timeline on those? Do they have to be expended by year's end, or what is that?
They're through June 2021. So we
All right,
have
so-
an additional 6 months with the CDBG.
I understand, but from what I'm hearing, it takes all this extra time, so we should get that ball rolling, and I assume you are.
It is. With the advertising's out, we're gathering the applications. We are probably a week away from being able to actually submit something to get money back. But up until this point, they have to open it up, and they had not administratively, we've been approved, but we could not start giving anybody any money until they had everything administratively ready to go, and that is going to happen next week.
Yeah, I mean, I don't want anyone to take these statements as I'm anti-business, because I'm not. Okay. We put the money out there, I voted to put the money out there, yet you're talking about another additional $200,000 with no to little auditing capabilities on that. So we don't know if they're gonna take this money and actually, maintain their business, or if they're gonna go out and do whatever it is, right? And I kind of have a little bit of an issue with that. It's just like, I guess nobody is gonna apply for the CDBG grant if there's a lot of work to it.
Mr. Martin, we
Yes.
do have about a dozen back in business grants already, and if you would like to come by my office, I'll show you how I kind of analyze these, because we do have records of what we're replacing for them. As far
But
as
she just said there's no auditing on it. They sign an affidavit.
they do, but they submit, most of them have submitted their lease, have submitted their power bills, their utility bills from March to June. So we're able to substantiate what we're paying for the most part, but I'd be glad to share that with you.
Sure, I think Mr. Q also asked for that earlier, didn't he?
He asked for
Yeah.
this, but
Well, I would like to see a little bit, where is this money going, a paper trail, just so we can be informed. I think that's why we're.
Well,
here.
we do have to maintain a paper trail because.
What we would like to see that paper
audit.
trail, we have not
Yeah.
seen it, so, I mean, that would be nice to see, that was my point, I understand.
I mean, there's $500,000 that was pretty much entrusted to the county that's pretty much gone, right? So, yeah, I think we'd like to see the paper trail.
It's been awarded, but
We
again,
have
there's
records.
Well, you
there
said
are
the check would be
records.
picked up like 3 days later, right? So.
Right, the money is in the account essentially, and once it's awarded, they've proven their economic loss. They've proven like what their lease is, they give a copy of the lease, they have a copy of their utilities, all that, so that it satisfies what Stacy needs for the CARES Act group. Then essentially, we are awarding them after they have proven that, the grants review committees come through, then it is awarded and they do pick up their check. So there is documentation.
And just, I think it's important to remember the difference between our CARES Act money and the DHCD money. Is only a reimbursement. They've got to sustain the loss, they've got to find savings or take out a loan or find money, and then they come back after it's all been sorted out and they get reimbursement. Our money, they can get it if they just demonstrate the business interruption, which is 10% loss or a 10% increase of expenses, they get the money right away. And so that's why that's going quickly. Remember, this money didn't cost us anything.
Not yet, and then.
Well, it doesn't cost us anything at all.
It will eventually cost us, because you just can't print money and spend it.
Well, okay,
It's not free money.
That's a federal issue, and I agree with you on
It's
that.
not free money.
I mean, there's no question the money has come from our grandchildren.
But you've got so much money right now, basically, you don't even know where to spend it all. You've got a list of things.
The federal government has given us very limited guidance, and we are being as generous as we can be with that money because the federal government was generous with us, and we're sharing it with local businesses. And we can withhold it, or we can distribute it. So we're trying to distribute it.
So fair enough, Madam Chair. One of the things to add to the list for us to consider is $200,000 more. So can we, if it pleases the rest of you, can we just hear the rest of it?
So, the duct cleaning, and I'm gonna skip down a little bit, so, and the HVAC projects, we've sent them out to bid, right? The bid's going out, the RFP going out?
No, we have.
Not yet?
I have a question. Duct cleaning, what buildings does that include? Does that include every single building?
Yes.
School
For air
system?
quality.
No, schools?
No, they don't need it, they just had to do HVAC put in.
I just, $200,000 for duct cleaning, I mean, that's a lot of duct cleaning.
Yeah, we're trying to do what we're trying to do. We already had a study done in this building, and it needed it in this building, but when this money just fell into our lap, it meets the criteria for hygiene. So we're cleaning the ducts, we're replacing the out-of-date equipment that doesn't have parts.
We're proposing.
We're proposing and installing, and I want to install UV light disinfection.
Well, that's included, I'm sorry.
That's included in the 200.
Yeah.
Okay.
I'm just describing what it is that this money is purchasing, and why it's hygiene related.
So the HVACs were on the CIP and the supplemental project listing. We tried to go find things that would qualify for this CARES Act funding. They would qualify because it's going to improve the air quality in the buildings. Just throwing it out there, it's on the list to think about. That's all I'm gonna say.
But everybody's gotta wear a mask so we don't benefit from clean air and stuff, so.
Yeah. So the next two lines are the savings for fiscal year 2020. Just a little plug, I look forward to calculating the 2021, because it took me 2 days to calculate the 2020. A solid 16 hours to sit there and manually calculate, because the financial software won't give me a report in 15 minutes. Just my little dig. So the savings for 2021 is 1,149,000. And the reason I split it is because I've got to get the books for 2020 closed. And you all have already appropriated 1.2 million to go to that switch. I'm proposing or recommending another $1 million, which gives you all more flexibility after December 30th. We put a number in here for funding some things for the schools. I do not have a complete list, but I do know that they are in need of the temperature things at the doors.
So, Stacey, I have a question about the salary switch.
So
So 2020 would be March,
through
April, May, June,
June.
4 months, and then 6 months is only $100,000 more. I mean, it would be July to December for the 2021.
Yeah, well, you could probably, I didn't want to go higher than the 2.2 that we had talked about, but, yes, I would probably estimate anywhere from 1.4 to 1.6 million.
Okay.
Instead of 1.1, it more than likely will be probably close to 1.4 or 1.6 that I could go pull out if need be. Now, so going back, I did skip broadband. You want to do that one last?
Yeah, we just go down each.
So right now,
empty
you've already
lines.
given 500,000 to broadband. With the idea that we would want to put $1 million there. You've already given 134,000 to teleworking. It is possible we could need more funding there at some point. The schools, we can work that with broadband as well. Like, if we could get an agreement with them to pay for broadband later with their money and pay for their PPE or their thermometers, all the things they need right now.
Question is, so some of these projects regarding our capital improvement plan, these are things that are on the list that you plucked off that list. Some of these HVAC, this is things that we will not have to do in the future, so it could free up more money to either be saved or spent. So.
Correct.
All right, and that has been the premise of most of these items on here, is that correct?
A lot of
That's
them-
where you started.
That's where we started, was with the CIP and the supplemental, trying to pull as much in as we could. So we still put back on there for sanitation reasons and social distancing, the break room renovations. The miscellaneous COVID-19 expenses, you already put 58.9 in there. I can tell you, we have already spent all the 20,000 in PPE and supplies. So the 150 will give us that flexibility as different departments need different things. We're getting requests for more social distancing accommodations, such as cubicles and plexiglass and that kind of thing. But so overall, the 150 I would hope would cover it. So now we're down to the public safety list, which was vetted with Director Bryant, unless there's something I don't know about. And the public safety list includes an ambulance, face masks, personal assigned face masks for the firefighters, a new stretcher, replacing all the tough books, entry point scanners, and additional PPE for the, staff. Any questions about that list?
Yes.
Okay.
So the ambulance, will that be replacing an ambulance or will that be an addition?
Additional.
Okay, now, I asked this a while back, I'm gonna ask it again. Do we have enough personnel to staff 4 medical units?
No, currently you do not at this point, no.
But we do not have enough staff for a 4th medical unit. We have a need for a 4th medical unit, but we don't have enough staff.
Not yet. The, one, this ambulance is available. It can, as you know, there's only, we can get it by December 30th. 2, we think that we can dedicate this one to COVID response to help, to the extent that that's possible, to help keep the other ambulances clean and not contaminated. And that's how we're going to justify this purchase.
I'm not saying we shouldn't buy it. I'm saying we should figure out how to staff it.
Absolutely. Well, that is a question for the next.
Could we staff them could we staff it out of the COVID money?
The COVID money must be spent before December 30th, so no, we need recurring funds for that.
I understand you would need recurring funds after December 30th, but the months from now until December 30th, you could pay their salaries, right?
Sure, if we can find the people that quick to hire them, and yeah, you can use your salary switch money for future years if you want to use it all up for salaries.
Do we have a home for the ambulance?
That's another thing that Mr. Pugh was talking about, right?
Yeah, we
Sam, you want to-
our options, that's all I'm saying.
Yeah.
Any more questions do you have?
So where would the ambulance go?
Station 3 in Elam.
Is there like a garage for it?
There is, and the challenge has been the other ambulances. You can't find a 4-wheel drive ambulance now. This is an all-wheel drive ambulance. It's a Malley. It's a tall, skinny ambulance. We're going right beside the fire engine that's currently there. We can't put our wide ambulances in the station that's there. There's been an ambulance house there, but it wasn't staffed. There'd have to be some work that, just grunt work to get that ready, to have an ambulance there. It would be what I would call our power shift. It would concentrate on the COVID patients that we know of. We're starting to have pods in our county. We have one family that lost 3 family members this week. So that would be the ambulance would respond to that area and that geographic area of Amherst County. It can be delivered. It's available. We are going through a transition period right now. We're working with county administrator and our ESC on bringing the volunteer rescue squads under us. None of their trucks would fit in this building. The challenge on personnel. The community college and the National Association of EMTs, National Registry, stopped making the EMTIs. That was the mid-level provider that you could get within a year or so. Not out there. No one's moving. We're the top paid right now. People are not moving to EMS. People are sitting at home and getting paid someone to do nothing. Lynchburg Fire Department's probably the premier agency around here. They're losing 10. We're being very creative in growing our own people from immediate EMT to advanced EMT and then to paramedic. And then my plan is to replace those people with paramedics. I've started a conversation with HR and Stacy and Dean on how to recruit people that want to go to paramedic school but don't have the money to do it to have them sign a contract. So I'm working with what I have. The people we have are great. They're doing an amazing job. They're not out there. You'll see an occasional person go to Charlottesville or go to Lynchburg. Lynchburg's losing 10. I know that for a fact. We're all at a loss right now. People aren't moving during COVID. And we're trying to be very creative with it.
So we get the ambulance, we got a place to put it. Is there any improvements that need to be done to that building or not?
Well, yes, there are. We need a bathroom, bench, if there was one there. We need paint and probably need a little bit of furniture. The roof's good. It has heat, but I guess you got to cheat a lot night working on it.
Is that in the 330? So my point being, don't disagree with the ambulance, but it sounds like, as long as we're talking about money, 200 for this, 300 for that, let's kind of try to figure out a way to actually complete something with the money, right? Get an ambulance, let's approve the home for the ambulance, and then let's start looking at ways to staff the ambulance down the road, right? Otherwise, it's just going to be an ambulance sitting in an old musty lake, right?
Of course, but, we're dealing with this pot of money and the rules with it, and we need guidance on whether, if you want to throw $1 million more, we have it. We can throw $1 million more into public safety, but we have to spend it on something by the end of this year and receive it by the end of the year. We're not pushing back on anything other than, we can't use it for construction. We can't use it for firefighting. It has to be health related. We've asked Sam to give us a shopping list of everything you can possibly use and need, and that's how we get with 330. We can put 430, we can put 530. It's a matter of figuring out.
You can't use it for construction, but you can use it for park restroom. That's construction.
Well, no, that's under the category of hygiene.
Or a bathroom.
A bathroom, we're talking about bathrooms. Well, if we needed to put bathrooms in existing buildings, but I'm not trying to, I feel like I'm fighting here to try to spend money.
Let me make a recommendation.
Feel free.
Remember that we can do the salary switch? So we can use more of it after December 30th for other public safety capital projects that we just can't physically get here. Or we can't meld into this little pocket, like the chassis on the Mount Allison truck. I just couldn't meld that into a COVID-related use.
That's a peddler truck.
Or peddler, where, I couldn't remember.
That's squad.
I see a whole lot of names.
That's 20-year-old squad.
So,
It could be used for decon and also helps set consumer intent up for decon and shelter.
right, but I can't tie that close enough, and anything that we tie to it in the gray area, if we get audited, the board needs to know we could have to pay it all back.
Absolutely.
Okay, so we're trying to err on the side of caution, so if we take more money in the end and have to put it in that payroll switch for savings, then you can do those other pieces that don't fit in the mold after December 30th. So I don't want you to think that we're like shortchanging anything. It's just what can we fit in the time frame to December 30th, and what can't we fit?
I get that.
I know he needs his new ambulance, and I would love to pay the part that we are allocated in our CIP, but it violates the rules of the CARES Act. But if we use it for public safety pay, then you can use that extra money to pay for those medic units or fix the bay for the new ambulance.
All right, but this ambulance is coming out there.
It is coming out of CARES money. It's the only one we can get here by December 30th.
Fine, okay.
And that,
All I'm saying is, I get what you're saying, and I'm not fighting with you with this money. I think we need to do it logically. We have to make a decision on it. I think 2 steps ahead, if you get an ambulance, what else comes with that? Let's not forget what else comes with it, right? So
There's a tail.
Right.
So I have a related but unrelated question, I guess. If you're having trouble with staffing, can any of the CARES funding go to sign-on bonuses? Is that considered salary?
I don't think that's the problem. I don't think.
No.
We already
and we
are,
don't want to set that
No,
precedent.
no, we can't use that.
we're already last paid in the area, right?
We are.
Pretty much, that's enough.
So it works in the private industry with DRT. They retain their people. They do interesting things like these bonuses, and they send people on cruises. I think that's interesting. We've never done that, and I wouldn't advocate for a cruise. A bonus means you're gonna sign a contract. I've already got people that are gonna sign contracts. The well has dried up on EMS providers, and we are working with CBCC to make them. and I am talking to our medical director about a very interesting program to try to make it faster, but it is a risk.
What about their education?
What about their education?
Is that all permissible expense?
I'm gonna ask that question tomorrow in my meeting, because we've talked, that's one of the things we talked about, is paying for some education for this semester out of CARES Act money.
Okay.
It costs me
I just
around,
want to get a better feel for what other people are doing before I think it should be.
I think it costs me about $12,000 to take an 18 or 19-year-old kid to turn into a paramedic. And he has a great job and a salary, but we need money to do that. I need to grow my own.
So are there, I'm gonna keep going.
Can we, I mean, I think we see all the rest of the park restrooms. You just listed the solid waste.
Well, what I wanted to say about the solid waste is, the reason that stuff is on there, it's another somewhat gray area that I'm gonna ask about tomorrow, is that we've had a 20% increase in our, like, tonnage since COVID started. So to ease the burden of that 20% increase, we're looking at what new compactors at different convenience centers and more recycling bins with cost. And of course, then the park bathrooms. But Mr. Thacker is here to answer questions about that if you need him.
What about any of the capital improvement, like trucks? Things like that cannot be used for CARE money, can it?
No.
No, even though that deals with sanitation? Okay. But you can get a compactor.
Well, we don't know about trucks. We're gonna, that's the discussion tomorrow. Yeah,
Okay.
we gotta sort it out.
All right, well,
I say it's a little gray. So I'm gonna ask the question tomorrow. The guidance says for increased capacity due to COVID.
Okay, so our flow is increased by 20%, so we want to increase our capacity by 20. And we can do that by adding compactors, because you're carrying fewer truckloads because the waste is compact and you're not carrying a lot of air.
Yeah.
So the trucks that we have are sufficient to absorb 20% increase, but that will help reduce our cost by compacting.
So what you need from the board is for us to move stuff from column D into column B to get to 5.5.
Yes.
Yes.
Can we talk to Sarah Logan about the bathroom?
That's Brian's project.
Oh, the bathroom, Brian?
Mhm.
They're going in the parks, right?
Yes.
Monica Park was just recently, we spent some money there a year ago on those bathrooms, I'm sure.
Can I go on a rabbit trail for just a minute? So God has a prolific sense of humor, because I used to work for Nolan Company about 15 years ago. They had a branch in Lynchburg. They used to deal with toilets. I said, I can't wait to get out of that. I'll never mess with the toilet again.
And now you're.
I sold my garbage company 2 years ago, so you know what? Done with garbage. Yet here I stand before you tonight talking about trash and toilets. So, what questions may I answer?
So there are restrooms at the county lakes, correct?
There are porta potties and a composting toilet at Thrasher's currently.
The Thrasher just has a composting toilet,
Yes, sir.
so there's no running water up there.
No, sir, but these are what are known as green flush toilets, so they don't require water. They have cisterns and rainwater collection systems that will help flush. They also have holding tanks for sewage, so we don't have to dig septic fields. They also have solar panels for power to run the lights and to run the pumps to circulate the water through the toilets. So they're fantastic systems that are all enclosed, and we can get delivered by the end of the year.
How do you wash your hands?
They have sinks.
Okay.
If you don't wash them in the toilets here, I can assure you they do have sinks.
You're talking about $90,000 for that.
Two of them are larger ones. Those are for the two parks. That's for Mill Creek and for Thrashers. The other ones are smaller toilets that cost a little bit less.
Is that 5 or 3 cars?
It's 5 total units. So we'd have 5 total units,
But not 5 different parts.
5 different parts. So we'd have one at Mill Creek.
Thrasher, Mill Creek, Stonehouse.
No, Stonehouse has their own toilet. This one,
Thrasher, Mill Creek.
Thrasher's Mill Creek, Rose Mill, that has a toilet.
That has a porta potty.
Seminole Park, which is to be built.
The dog park.
There you go. And Coolwell Convenience Center. So that has a toilet there, but it's the highest traffic area. We'd like to put one there as well. They already have running water, they already have power. So it'd be a lesser expensive toilet to put there.
At the convenience.
Yes, sir. The park already has one. Coolwell Park.
Okay. But roughly $90,000 for something.
Well, for 5 toilets and 400,000, that's roughly 80.
I put 450 in there just as.
Yeah, 85.
Okay.
Any other questions?
Yeah, I do, not for you. I'm sorry, and I really want to move on with this too. The schools, what are they using it for, like thermometers? And
They definitely need,
do you need all 450 of them?
I know she asked me for a chunk, not a chunk, but a piece, and I told her to come with a list of what she thought she might cover, 54.
That's more than 450.
Maybe not covering it all. They gonna have to figure it out on their side.
Well, I think the point is, in this regard, anything that we can give them that qualifies and that we can spend before the end of the year becomes a school switch for us, in the sense that Dr. Arnold has expressed his willingness to devote whatever we pay toward their expenses for adding to our broadband effort. So if we pay $450,000 worth of their expenses, as we get the broadband plan and continue to implement it and go out for proposals and so forth to implement the phases of the plan, they'll have $450,000 available to contribute toward that. Their CARES Act money lasts longer than ours. They've got a full year. We've only got 5 months.
So you're talking about things like transportation, PPE, additional staff for cleaning. But isn't that why we moved capital funds over so y'all could hire additional staff?
It is.
Okay.
So we have 1.4 million.
Uh-huh.
At the end of the year, we are anticipating somewhere around $973,000 in carryover. If you were to do 450,000, that lacks about 20 to 30,000 of what we would need to get to the 1.4 million. And then we have $807,000 worth of CARES Act money that we can devote to technology or other needs that may surface between now and the end of the year. Today,
So the 450 gets you to the 1.44.
yes, sir.
Okay.
And today we have spent and ordered approximately $292,000 in PPE parts.
This is interesting because I just think of, if a cluster develops in a school system and they say it's all virtual, you go all virtual. And then there's all these things that are on this list that you will not need. So what do? You just spend it anyway? You know what I mean? Because you're supposed to spend it by December 30th. So that's just my question. And you talked about a swap, like swapping some of the money for this out as.
Well, yeah, that's what we talked about, but I'm not hearing that from you.
Mm-hmm. No, $807,000 in CARES Act money
Would be available.
would become available if we used our year-end money that you all approved at the last meeting, plus the $450,000 would get us to take care of this.
Okay.
Then that frees up quite a bit of our CARES Act money that we have an extended length of time to redo our application and submit it for broadband or some type of internet service.
What all, have you all as a school board decided on a number you're dedicating to wireless or broadband or what have you?
I think right now we're waiting for the proposal to come in. And this proposal right here, we have $150,000 for technology devices, whether it be hotspots or wheels.
The trailers.
The trailers.
The hotspots
The mobile
on wheels.
hotspots.
But you've got longer to make your decision on where to put broadband money, because your CARES
That's correct.
doesn't have to be spent before December.
Yes, sir.
They can wait for the plan.
And in addition to that, last week we submitted a plan, another grant for $150,000 for additional technology money to go toward the broadband. And it was specific.
So this 450 could free up X amount to go towards broadband in the future.
That's correct. And the thing that's different with our grant versus the grant that the county received, we have to write an application.
So I'm kind of conflicted here, Mr. Martin, because I think I remember you asking a question a couple weeks ago about internet expansion, but that money for the students had to go to students. You were talking about if a family was able to receive that internet, no, only the student will be allowed to use the internet. So what?
I don't know how that works.
Yeah, I don't either. So, you know, we had that conversation.
We did, and their money is for distance learning. Our money is for teleworking, but what are you getting? You're getting a wire or a signal to a house. It's all the same thing.
Yeah.
It's the same
Yeah,
thing.
you're just, I mean, you're gonna try and show when you spend your money that it's increasing internet availability to students. We're gonna try and show that it's increasing internet availability so people can telework. And in reality, it's probably not that much sitting on the couch watching Netflix from it, right? So, yeah, that's my point. I mean, you're not gonna be able to control who gets access. You're making it available.
That's correct.
But you can't control who actually signs up to get that access. Okay. So, okay.
And then the second piece of paper attached is with Comcast. And I'm not sure if y'all are aware of it, but anyone that has available Comcast and meets the criteria, they can get 2 months of free Comcast, and then the monthly fee is $9.95. But you do have to meet the criteria.
If it's available.
Yes, sir. And in the Madison Heights area and the town of Amherst, Comcast is available.
Oh, I would say Comcast is not available everywhere in Madison Heights. There's large parts of my district that have no cable. And, you know, it's along the major corridors, but a lot of the houses and subdivisions that are a little off the beaten track do not have them. Off of Coolwell Road, off of Asphalt spots, off of 130.
I've made contact with their government affairs rep, and they've been notified and are planning, we're hoping they're planning to submit proposals on, we told them, just find a street that you can go down that has enough customers to make it worth your while, and submit these as different proposals so that we'll share them with Lit and see if they make sense. But you betcha, we track Comcast down for that very purpose.
Are the schools communicating this with families?
Yes.
Board, for the sake of time, I'm just gonna suggest what I have written down.
Do you have any other questions?
Okay, thank you. So the HVAC, that's 100 grand, so if you move that over, right?
Yeah.
And then the 94.5 for the HVAC.
Okay.
450 for the schools. The 330 for the public safety. I would move 300 for the park restrooms, and that would give you the 150 for the business and nonprofit grants.
150 or 200?
I think she said she needed 150.
That's just for the business.
150 for business and 50 for the nonprofits.
I do 150.
And it's okay to be a little bit over because there might be grant money left over.
But then the way I added that up, was there like $31,000 left of those numbers? Can you add that up?
Yes, 31,862.
And I would put that into public safety and make it 361,860.
Could we add that to the COVID-19 expenses?
Oh, wait a minute.
58.9.
I need the COVID expenses.
I believe those are already coming in.
Is that added already?
No, I need another 91 there.
Oh.
That's for PPE for the whole county across the board and social distancing stuff, and we have already spent 20.
All right, can you just start a tally then? So,
Yeah, it's right there on the screen, I'm sorry.
Can you highlight it red or something? That'll be easy to see.
all right, with the 58.9, the 58.9 of COVID expenses is into 1.858.
Yeah, but I needed it to be raised to the 150 that was in the column D.
Well, I see that. So you really need another roughly 91,000.
91.
And now we're over by 60,000.
That's okay.
I think that's okay, because I think,
It's not going to be that close and that tight. And we can manage that.
You got some cushion built in there on some of those items.
And there is the cushion, the after December 30th, that is all
I'll adjust
literally
it there
cushion.
for now for the appropriation, and then as we find out what the actual amounts are as these things start coming in, we'll probably have to come back and appropriate to a different place at some point.
So that's my thought. Forward.
I'm fine with that.
I'm fine with that, but the schools, they're gonna work with us for the broadband, because we're giving them that $450,000, correct?
Dr. Arnold is very much in favor of getting broadband to our students in Amherst.
It would be, I don't know if we can ask that. It would be nice to have something, a memorandum of understanding, to kind of put that in writing for this. That would be nice. I don't know.
We'll work on that.
Okay.
So that miscellaneous COVID expenses, that kind of helps public safety out too, right?
Yeah, if they end up with more PPE than what we've given them in their line,
Okay. And I'll say this, as far as, so you're left with like 300,000 for parks restroom. I would really like Sarah Lou to provide input on where they should go. Right. And they would go in parks and not necessarily the convenience center. Okay.
Yeah, I would think that would take priority. Because the bathroom at the facilities would be mainly for the workers that are working there.
Right. So, I mean, I would think.
Parks should have priority, yes, sir. And Mill Creek, we've been saving money to build something at Mill Creek the whole time I've been here. And it's just wonderful now that we can actually build a restroom out there.
I will say that I'm glad that, because there was talk about having to build a septic system.
And a pump system, yeah.
And,
It's terrible.
I don't know, it seems kind of, I know, I go to visit my in-laws in Florida, and I went to some of the parks down there, and it's hot and humid down there, but they have these state-of-the-art compostable toilets that a lot of places use down there in some of the more rural areas that work fine. I don't care what bathroom you go to, sometimes things will stink, right? And, but it's true, So as long as we can, help alleviate that situation, because that was the complaint that the bathrooms weren't taken care of and they didn't smell good. And, that was a lot of the complaint we got. And there's some nice parks, we get a lot of people to visit them from out of the county, so. Yeah.
Okay, so then we will take these additions and as we produce the motion we've got to hold a public hearing. We're going to do the public hearing at the next meeting, okay? Rather than wait for an evening meeting, which would be in the second half of September. We're gonna hold the public hearing at the first meeting in September, a day meeting on the 1st of September, so that we can get to contracts and purchase orders and get things out more quickly. If that's okay with the board. I mean, normally we do public hearings at night so that people can come after work, but, you know, these are pennies from heaven that are not hurting us in any way and help us a great deal. So I hope that's okay with the board.
Sure. So I just want to ask one more question. Just for the public's information, we've set aside $500,000 for broadband, right? There's potentially another 450 that would come from the schools, right? So that's almost $1 million. There's all these other grants that are, so how much money is the county and schools looking at putting in broadband in the next year?
Well, we have to come to you and we have to ask that. And we're gonna bring those proposals, really at the next meeting.
But just what we're kind of figuring, the schools is looking at putting money in it, right?
Well, the schools was, what'd you say, 800?
450.
Okay, well, at least 450. And here you've already put 500 in, so that's 950. And then we haven't even talked about the 2.2 and possibly 2.4 that you've reserved.
But didn't we talk about some grants that other people were applying?
The value grants, if they're awarded.
If they're awarded,
that's $720,000 worth of grants that are
close to $2 million potentially could be going into internet.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
So we're working on it. It can't happen overnight.
Right, correct.
We can't snap our fingers and make decisions wrong.
No. And so, at the next meeting, when we bring all of these proposals that we've been soliciting, or as I said, we're gonna help us vet them, which ones make sense and which ones don't. We're gonna bring them back to the supervisors and ask the supervisors, which ones do you want to fund? With the 500,000, and you want to dip into anything else, any extras that you haven't spent yet, like from the 2.2.
So you have everything you need from us here?
We do. We do. Although we do need you to direct staff to conduct the public hearing. That's how the motion is written.
Or anybody want to make that motion?
So we need a motion directing staff to publicize a public hearing for the appropriation of 2.7 million in additional CARES Act funding.
So moved.
Motion on the floor by Mr. Martin, all in favor, say aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. This time, we're gonna open up citizen comment. Anybody here wanting to address the board? All right, matter from the members of the board of supervisors.
No, ma'am.
Martin, Mr. Hughes? I have nothing. Motion to adjourn.
So moved.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you, everybody. Oh.